Hey, beautiful friend, it's Marnie. I'm so glad that you've decided to spend a little bit of time with me today. I hope you've had a great week. Listen, I know it's a great big noisy world out there, so the fact that you have decided to tune in here with me is a tremendous honor. Thanks for being here. I have an awesome guest for you today, and her name is AnnMarie Mckenzie, and she is a soulful business strategist and a heart-centered leader, and she's also certified as a numerology expert. Through her own growth journey, she's discovered the sweet spot between hustle and flow, and she teaches how to embrace both the divine feminine and the divine masculine that lives within us all. With her heart-centered and holistic wellness principles, she's coming to empower us to unearth our authentic selves and to help us step into the next chapter of life by fulfilling our soul's purpose and expanding our capacity for more love and abundance. So whether you are just going through a career pivot in your life, or you're ready to start a business that just lights you up from the inside out, or maybe you're just ready for a radical shift, then you are in for a treat and an energetic download from another West Coast Canadian girl just like me. So if this sounds good to you, then stick around because you're not going to want to miss this. Welcome to this episode of Life is Delicious. I'm Marnie Martin, and I'm so glad you're here. And if this is your first time here, welcome to the Life is Delicious family. This podcast isn't about surviving midlife. It's about crafting your next chapter life, overflowing with purpose, joy, and delicious possibilities. Listen, midlife doesn't have to be a crisis. It can be a beautiful invitation to remember who we are, to rediscover a new version of ourselves, or to completely reinvent our life to reflect who we are becoming now. So if you're tired of being exhausted, living life on autopilot, and putting everyone else first, then you are in the right place. Each week, we'll bring you thought-provoking ideas and practical strategies, as well as inspiration to help you prioritize yourself again. It's time to take back your joie de vivre. So grab a notebook and pen and pop in those earbuds, and let's go get it. As we all know, life isn't always delicious. And one of the only constants we have in life is that things are always changing. Life can be a beautiful mess of twists and turns. And as we grow through each unique season of life, our needs change, our goals change, our priorities change, and our responsibilities change. And sometimes when the really hard stuff shows up, as it inevitably will, we can find ourselves lost and without a clear direction. Sometimes that can happen when we've had a huge life transition, like a divorce or a diagnosis, or we realize that our babies are all grown up and ready to be out on their own. And sometimes it can be a subtle or not so subtle restlessness that tells us we're ready to step into a bigger, bolder, more authentic version of ourselves. But one thing is for sure, we can't transition into what's next happily until we get really clear about what's weighing us down, what lights us up, and what we truly want when our soul whispers its truth. Happy is Not an Accident is a guided journal created to bring you back home to your truest self, to remember who you are, and to give you a safe place to explore and reflect on where you've been, where you really want to go, and who you want to become now. With deep, inspiring prompts, thought-provoking questions, and powerful exercises to help you excavate your most authentic self, Happy is Not an Accident will be the daily ritual that you look forward to as you step into this next awesome chapter of life. Give yourself the gift of self-reflection and create this beautiful life of yours on purpose and with intention. Get your copy or one for somebody that you love at lifeisdelicious.ca/happy. Welcome, AnnMarie. I'm so grateful to have you on the Life is Delicious podcast, and I'm so excited to have another West Coast Canadian girl on the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here with you and to have this conversation.
Your line of work sounds really fascinating, and I'd love for you to tell the listeners how you got into working in this very intuitive way, and we can also dive into the numerology after, but tell us how you got to do this work to begin with.
In 2014, I lost my mother to cancer, and it really pushed me to question everything in my life, everything in my work, everything in my relationships, and to make some really big changes. And one of the things that helped me navigate her cancer and everything that we experienced in 5 months was emotional intelligence. I really focused on how it is that I wanted to feel during this experience that was going to be horrible, awful, a lot of grief involved, a lot of sadness, a lot of anger, a lot of big emotions. And so I chose some words to help me ground in this experience and chose to feel that way every single day, despite all of the negative feelings that I was going to be experiencing and feeling as well, and really use that as a beacon of light for other people. And then when I lost her, because of how profound the result was, I just wanted to shout this from the rooftops that everybody needed to better understand emotional intelligence and heart intelligence and use this as a catalyst for growth, and also use this as a way to really flip the switch in terms of goal setting, and be more intentional, and not just intentional but being more emotionally intentional. And from that I just started offering workshops and trainings and gathered people in the park, and I worked with nonprofits and women and teens and couples, and it just grew and expanded from there.
That's fascinating. It's very interesting that it came from a very organic place because, as you know, I lost my mom in January, and
Mhm.
the 2 to 3 years prior to that, I think I was living in a lot of fight and flight, right? Because I wasn't expecting some of what came quickly, and it just kind of snowballed and avalanched on top of, all of my other things in life. And it was hard. It was a challenge for sure. So I love that you took kind of more of a focused approach to kind of get ahead of it before it actually took you down.
Thank you, and I'm sorry for your loss.
Oh, thank you so much. I also think that in this particular place of life and a lot of my audience, it's not just dealing with elderly parents, but that definitely is a component, like everybody gets a turn. But there's also other hard things like raising adult kids and just finding yourself in that sandwich generation. So tell us maybe a little bit more about, maybe define emotional intelligence for us. And then I think you also talk about energetic intelligence. So what's the difference between those two things?
Great question. Energetic intelligence is being able to better understand energy. And one piece of that thread is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is having the ability to feel your feelings, dissect your feelings, name your feelings, have conscious conversations about your feelings, and to show up in ways that are more reflective of kindness and empathy and compassion. It is the root of emotional mastery. This also involves emotional regulation and emotional control, and also having this ability to choose our emotions, to learn how to actually feel what it is that we are feeling and use that as a foundational piece to healing, which many of us weren't taught. We were taught to suppress feelings rather than actually feel them. But in order to heal, we have to feel. And there's also another thread to this, which is heart intelligence under that umbrella of energetic intelligence. And heart intelligence supports us to take emotional intelligence a step further and bring the heart into coherence. So emotions fluctuate and have different frequencies. And you can actually look up a table to better understand that, anger is a particular emotion, but it's also connected to passion, which is connected to compassion, to support us to understand that we do have the ability to transmute emotions, but we have a tiny brain in the heart that stores these emotions and these feelings. And so when we have life experiences, often it triggers an old memory in the heart, and we end up having a repeat feeling for a new experience. And so heart intelligence moves the emotional intelligence into this opportunity to actually transmute it through our breath, through our presence, and through that ability to choose differently. And then also under the umbrella of energetic intelligence is just another way to actually connect with God or the universe, source, all that is. There's many different ways that we can speak to God, and emotional intelligence is one of those pieces, but numerology is also one of those pieces as well. Numbers have a vibration and a frequency, and when you learn this and understand the energetics of the numbers, then you can better tune into the universe and have conversations with the universe.
I love that so much. I'm very spiritual and I do meditate and I spend a lot of time with my journal and I do really make that a conscious effort in my life. But just so we can sort of unpack what you were talking about, if I understand it correctly, when you have an experience and your body has a visceral feeling, a lot of the time that is because of an old memory and it's something that's kind of learned behavior and then our body actually responds. Is that correct?
Very much so. And this is literally the purpose that all of us chose in this lifetime is to come to what I call Earth School and learn how to transmute energy, which is transmute emotions. So whenever something comes up for myself, and especially when my emotional response doesn't actually match the experience, we've all had that where, we journal in the morning, we meditate, we get into the car, we drive into the city, and then all of a sudden we're angry at a driver for not using their signal and we're acting out from that place. And it just doesn't make sense. It's like, why am I so angry at somebody for not being that
Right.
good of a driver? And so I'll ask myself, when have I felt like this before? When have I felt like this before? When have I felt like this before? And continue asking myself, when have I felt this anger before, to actually get to the root cause of my anger and know that this experience that I'm having is a spiritual assignment being provided for me in this moment. So that way I can transmute this old anger that's lingering and that just doesn't serve me anymore.
So really just paying attention to our emotions and saying, okay, what do I need to learn from this moment?
Hmm. Absolutely.
That's awesome. I love that. And that does take a lot of consciousness and as much as we do tend to get ourselves in the right frame of mind and to be in the receiving mode and to look at tuning into the universe, it's very easy. I find it so funny because I understood this in my brain for such a long time, but to actually live by those principles takes a lot of practice. And so now I'm better at it, but it's still we flip back into human mode and we forget sometimes, it's just the way things go.
Absolutely. I can relate to that as well.
That's why we need people like you to help us out.
Thanks. Yeah.
So how do you think this particular energetic or emotional intelligence, how can that support someone going through some of these major life challenges that we, sit with in midlife?
It's a great question as well. Change is hard for everybody,
It is.
whether we're choosing it or whether we get this like cosmic bitch slap and we don't expect it. It's all pretty challenging. But it's the one universal constant. Change is the inevitable. It's the one thing that we can rely on. It's consistent, and we can either choose to go with the flow and learn how to navigate those changes with more grace and more ease, or we can be taken down by it. And so, emotional intelligence can support us in navigating these changes by providing us an anchor, something that is more of a higher frequency, more of a higher vibrational state to remember that as we're going through these changes and as all of these things are happening for us, not to us, that we may feel like, there's a lot of things that we can't control, but there is this one thing that we can control. And that's our response. That's our reaction to the situation. I can choose to be bitter or I can choose to be better. I can choose to be angry or I can choose to be compassionate. It's a choice. And so when we're going through these difficult periods of our life where all of these things are changing again, whether we're choosing it or not, it gives us this sense of empowerment. It provides us with some confidence that we're going to get through this, that this too shall pass. Does that make sense?
Totally. Absolutely. And I mean, we talk a lot on my podcast about setting intentions and trying to be more purposeful with our actions and the way we show up in the world. But again, that's a practice, and that's something we have to be focusing on in order to be able to catch ourselves when things get hard.
Mm-hmm. One thing that served me very well, and that's integrated into everything I do, is when people are setting goals or new intentions. And I know you don't believe really in New Year's resolutions either, because I've listened to your podcast, but maybe there's some people that do and they love them, and that's okay. When you're choosing a goal or setting a new intention, I really encourage everybody to consider the feeling or the emotion that's attached to it, because everything that we are seeking that's outside of ourselves is actually connected to a feeling. And so if we can shift our focus towards that feeling and then make choices based on how it is that we want to feel, I call this a heart compass, then that becomes the GPS for our soul. That becomes our energetic navigation system. And so it supports us to make decisions a lot quicker. It supports us to strengthen our own intuition. Because if, say, for example, if we've chosen support, if we've chosen gratitude, here's an example. If you've chosen gratitude, we can step into a situation and we can tell if somebody's genuinely appreciative or genuinely thankful, or if they're also somebody who really truly appreciates people, places, situations. And that supports us to tune into, again, the energetics. Then we can navigate that. We can discern that this isn't in alignment, or yes, this is in alignment. It also ends up being this goalpost for ourselves as well of like, am I operating from this place? We know, unfortunately, we don't get to show up and say, well, I've chosen to feel grateful, so you need to be grateful for me. We don't get to dictate that other people. But
Right.
what we can do is say, I'm going to send feelings of gratitude out into the universe. I'm going to show higher levels of appreciation and thankfulness and gratitude to other people. And I'm going to trust that what I'm putting out there to the universe is going to radiate back to me because I'm speaking the language of the universe. And I'm also going to detach from this idea or expectation of where it's going to come back to me at. So therefore, in relationships, as an example, just because we're grateful for our partner, we can't sit in expectation that they're going to turn around and be grateful for us as well. I mean, I hope so. That's what a loving and healthy relationship is, but not in every single teeny tiny circumstance can we expect that.
Yeah, and I think that's so much about creating our boundaries for ourselves. But I find it fascinating because I think often we forget that when we put out into the universe what we want to receive, we can become like a mirror for other people. Mm-hmm. And we can actually help them to lean into that as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So what would be your advice for someone who's trying to practice this and be out in the world when they get met with, say, maybe a difficult person or somebody who's not going to get on board with that emotion? What would you give them as an action that would help them stay in alignment with themselves and yet still be able to navigate that situation?
Well, I feel that it's really important, first and foremost, to just work with a couple emotions to start off. If you've never done this before, start with one emotion and then slowly build it up. But really have a group of maybe just two or three. And the reason I suggest this is when my mother was passing, I remember I had about 15. And so every single day there was a big list of, okay, well, if I want to feel love, gratitude, sacred, supported, appreciation, presence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then here's all the things that I have to do. And so kind of keep it simple to
Start small.
Yeah, to actually like feel a sense of accomplishment, to actually move the needle forward and to actually strengthen your intuition instead of creating chaos by overloading ourselves with too much. And then remember that you have no control over how another person feels, how another person reacts, or another person responds. But you do have control of how you react, respond, and feel about something. And what's most important in that situation is being able to look back and be proud of yourself for how your behaviors, how you navigated that situation. Is this coming from a place of love or is this coming from a place of fear? That's where all emotions stem from, one of these two
Yeah.
vibrational states. And so to keep it really simple, it's like, am I acting out of love? And I want to overemphasize that acting out of love does not mean tolerating other people's shit. One of the greatest acts of love is having those boundaries. And it's okay to have boundaries and it's okay to speak our boundaries, but we can do so in a way that's very loving and kind. And so, really, just consider, who is it that I want to be? How do I want to feel in this situation? And how do I want this other person to feel in that situation? How can I go about navigating this? What choices can I make? How can I behave? How can I show up? What are the words I can choose? What's the tone of my voice? What's my body language? Even what's the environment that I can choose that's going to actually be a full representation of that heart compass, of that core feeling, of that emotional intelligence or that emotional intentionality? And then come from that place and give yourself some grace. You're not going to get it right the first time. You're going to make
Or
mistakes.
100% of the time.
Yeah, like you're going to get it wrong. And even myself, like I've done this work now for going on over 11 years. It's been 11 years really diving into it, and then about 13 years this has been in my realm, and I still mess it up. I still don't consider myself somebody who's an emotional master. So give yourself some space and grace, and just recognize that those mistakes aren't really mistakes, they're just opportunities for growth. And keep trying, keep practicing, keep being the example of what you wish to see in the world, and trust that it will come back to you tenfold in ways that you can't fathom.
Oh man, I love that so much. That's just such a beautiful statement of how if everybody did that, man, would be a much more beautiful place to live for sure.
It really would.
Yeah. So emotional intelligence, I know, has this component, and I know you do some work with masculine and feminine energies. Can we speak a little bit about that, and how do we find that balance between the feminine energy within us and the masculine energy? Because I know that that's something I think I struggle with a little bit, because I tend to I'm very cerebral, so I feel like maybe I'm in my left brain a lot, and so I maybe come from some of that masculine energy a little more often than I'd like. So I'd love some insight into that.
Threw me a curveball there, Marnie. A huge Star Wars
But
fan.
I
do love this topic. This really always reminds me of May the Force be with you, and just bringing balance back to the Force. And I do have a picture of Yoda and baby Yoda as I'm saying this in my mind. Here's a visualization for people listening. The number 8, lay it on its side so it's an infinity symbol. That's where we live in Earth School. We chose to be in an energetic grid that represents duality and polarization: negative, positive, hot, cold, tall, short, masculine, feminine. And
Right.
It's not for us to judge one side or the other. It's not for us to say, well, this is good and that is bad, or this is right and that is wrong. But it's for us to come to a place of neutrality, or find our flow, to constantly come back to the center of that. Now, when I say that, I can resonate with what you're saying in terms of sometimes I feel like I'm a little bit more masculine, but yet I chose to incarnate as a woman. We all have masculine and feminine qualities, and some of us are coded with more masculine energy than feminine energy. When I look at my astrology chart, for example, over 50% of it is rooted in fire. That's masculine energy. So one way that I bring balance back to my own force is I seek out situations and experiences that are competitive. I still play baseball. I still play on competitive teams. And I have a little mantra in our home that me hitting things on a regular basis is for everybody's safety. And that's why
I
I
love
have,
that.
because
That's a great way to look at it.
yeah, my masculine needs to be expressed. I instead of negating the fact that I'm a competitive person, I mean I'm also an Aries and all that fire, within me is competitive. Instead of, shaming or judging that masculine side of me that is competitive, I give it a healthy place to go.
That's amazing. And I was going to ask you that if what you say is kind of coded for your being must have something to do also with your astrology sign and birth and the numerology. It's kind of all tied together, isn't it?
Absolutely. Everything, astrology doesn't exist without numerology, and numerology doesn't exist without astrology. It's the most ancient system that's rooted in math and science, and it does tell us absolutely everything about ourselves. And
Yeah, and I'm a good Aries too, so
yeah, you
we
get
talked
it.
about that.
Again, let's bring it back to like that symbol of the infinity symbol or eight. When we draw an eight and it being two concentric circles, to come back to like masculine and feminine and the force, when we draw an eight, sometimes the circle on top is smaller than the one in the bottom. The bottom is bigger sometimes, or you can visualize it as like a snowman. And maybe that is what balance looks like for you. Maybe that's what the masculine and feminine looks like for you. It doesn't always have to be two concentric circles. But again, as long as we learn how to move through and flow through both of those energies and find a way to navigate and come back to the center, that's what's going to support us. And again, that's why I love emotional intelligence and really tuning into energetics and the heart intelligence and understanding numerology, because once I see the energy, then I know what it's going to take in order to navigate through that center. I know, oh, I'm moving through the shadow side of, we're recording this in November, it's a 2 energy month. If there is a conflict or if somebody's showing up in black and white thinking, I know that's the disempowered side of the 2 energy. And then I can see that and choose from that compass of my heart, what are the choices I'm going to make to help bring this back to the center, to help bring this back to neutrality, to help neutralize this or bring it back into more of an empowered state. And again, not to be judged, it just is, but to transmute and move that energy. Does that answer your question?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's really fascinating. I think this is a really big topic and there's a lot of depth to it. So we have to, be able to explain it to people in a way, but there's so much to unpack.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about how you work with, because what I love is I've been just going through a whole phase in my life where I'm building a business and I've got a few hats that I wear and finding that balance between the hustle and the flow and, not overworking. And I know that's a huge part of what you do is work with women and help them build heart-centered businesses. So let's talk a little bit about that for maybe the audience members who are either pivoting in their career at this point in their life or maybe thinking of starting a business because maybe they are going to retire, but they have something on their heart that they want to bring to the world. Let's talk a little bit about that because I think that's a big, important part of being able to find our purpose in the latter chapter of life.
Mm-hmm. What I've noticed is oftentimes businesses are birthed out of this desire to not want to burn out anymore, to kind of take our power back in terms of our time and our energy and our freedom. Can you relate to that?
I totally can
Yeah.
relate to that. That is why I'm self-employed and have been for a long time because
Yeah.
I think I was a really good employee, but I wasn't a happy employee.
Yeah. And what we tend to do, I see this with almost every single one of my clients, and I know I did this as well in 2014 and 2015 when I started building. I swung that pendulum really far. I was definitely an A type. I call myself an A type in recovery. I spent the majority of my time in the masculine. I worked my ass off. I worked extra hours. I sat on multiple boards in high level positions with everything that I did. And I was tired and exhausted. And even though everything I was aligning with was a good cause, the people that were a part of that didn't necessarily have the same values. So when I built my business, I swung the pendulum so far out of the masculine and then into the feminine, that also didn't work either.
So it's finding that balance.
Yeah, it really, having this realization, and one of the things I talk about all the time is that our feminine flow, our river needs to have riverbanks or it's a disaster. It's an absolute
Totally.
disaster. And
Yep.
and if the riverbanks are too high and there's not a lot of precipitations, well, that's not great either. But and then to take it a step beyond that, I ask, are you in the right boat? For somebody like myself, I grew up in Ontario, and in Ontario, we love canoeing, especially Northern Ontario. I spent a lot of time in Algonquin, and I love a canoe. When I put that paddle in my hand and I'm in that boat, there's tears of gratitude that instantly flow through my heart because it feels like home. And then when I moved to the West Coast, everybody was on stand-up paddle boards, and I didn't understand it. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
what,
That's the
what are
thing
we,
here.
what are we talking about? Where's the canoes? And nobody had any canoes. And so then you have to ask yourself, okay, I figured it out. I'm on the river. I've got the river banks. I'm finding that balance. And then you have to look and go, am I even in the right boat? And if you're not, pull over and get into the right boat. Then come back to that flow, come back to that river, and get yourself to a point where you're so strong in terms of your energetic intelligence. And that's understanding who it is that you are, what it is that you came here to do, your purpose, who you're here to serve. You get to the point where you just have so much trust and confidence in yourself and the universe that you let go of the paddles. And
Yeah.
you don't always know where it is that you're going, but you just know it's a really good place.
Yeah. And you're in that flow at that point, right? You're not actually having to force it to happen or make it happen. You get to go along for the ride because you are in the right boat.
Mhm. We have forced
That's,
things for so long because, again, that pendulum shifted. Like, women had a role and then eventually decided, I don't want to be in the home or in the kitchen or only taking care of the kids. I actually want to go out and work. But then that pendulum swung too far, and then they were working full time, but also managing the home and the children and the family. And then that got to be too much. And it's like, okay, well, where's that middle ground? What does that look like for us? And how can we move forward in a way that feels really good and move forward in a way that like honors my own values, but then also has that positive ripple effect to the people in my life that matter to me?
yeah, absolutely. Is there any specific things like for this particular space of life where we're inundated with social media and Facebook and LinkedIn and whatever else going on? How can we kind of navigate that without, like, are you a fan of social media or do you kind of pull back from it? What do you do for yourself?
Before I built this business, I removed myself from all platforms. The only reason that I'm on social media is for my business. If I had a choice, I wouldn't be on it. But I have built a healthy relationship with it. I think there are times, because I'm human, I'll say to my partner, I'm in a scroll hole, help me, pull me out of it. Let's get
Yeah.
out, let's do something else. I feel that what the world needs now, what each of us need as individuals, which will contribute to the collective consciousness greatly, is presence. And presence is very difficult when there's a lot of distractions around us. So simple acts like turning your phone on do not disturb, turning the ringers off to avoid those distractions supports you to actually be present in the moment. And presence is what fosters choices, reactions, responses that come from a place rooted in heart intelligence, emotional intelligence that reflect your heart compass. If you're not present, then you're reacting unconsciously. If you are present, you will be reacting consciously. So when we're doing things like choosing distractions and spending time on places like social media, we can get really caught up again in the duality of it, in the polarization of it. And so many people don't feel seen or heard or understood. And so there's a lot of shouting and opinions on social media. And then when you get trapped in that cycle, it doesn't serve us
No.
at all.
I
I
couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. I think presence is super important. And I've just kind of recently started turning my do not disturb on when I'm working. And I've kind of left it on when I'm done my work. Like I just leave it on for a few hours. And I can't believe how much that has shifted the way I see the world and how I actually get work done and just even connect in my own day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm. These devices, these platforms, they were created under the guise of to keep us all connected. But the reality is the deeper intention of them is to disconnect us, to disconnect our mind and heart, to disconnect us from source, to disconnect us from each other. And so a really great antidote for that is to actually create opportunities for real deep connection. And that's not online. It can be if we are intentional with it. And this is why I work with my heart compass. Before I comment on anything, I pause and I ask myself, is this going to make this person feel luminously rooted in abundance, deep, authentic, creative connections, or kind of a big deal? That's my heart compass. Now they're a little bit more complex, but again, I've been doing this for 11 years plus. And if the answer is no, then I delete it. And there's definitely times where I get activated and I want to react and respond from a place that's a low vibrational place. And I'll type something out. And then thankfully, I've taught myself to practice the pause and ask that question and then delete it. And even sometimes, if the answer is yes, this will create deep, authentic, creative connections, kind of a big deal, luminously rooted in abundance. There's some times where I'll still delete it because I actually don't want to spend energy responding to the responses of my response. It's not how I want to spend my time. So I just delete and go, you know what, AnnMarie, that's not. And I was not like this 5-6 years ago. Like I was definitely a keyboard warrior. I mean, I am a warrior. I'm a spiritual warrior. I'm here to speak my truth. But I've shifted how I go about doing that to be, again, more intentional and to do so from a place of kindness and empathy, compassion, hopefully all the time. But, more importantly, do so in a way where it actually does foster deep connections. And again, commenting on social media, to my experience, especially after 2020, doesn't do that. It just creates more divide.
I totally agree on that. Okay, that's fascinating. So let's talk now. I know this is, again, like I said, it's a deep subject, but can you just talk to us a little bit, give us the broad strokes on numerology? Because I know you can look at sort of a forecast with what you've learned, because we're just doing this whole thing on the podcast right now and kind of getting ready for the new year, not doing resolutions, but kind of trying to get momentum into what's really matters to us. So I'd love just your take on how we could learn a little bit about the numerology piece and maybe help us to make better choices or set ourselves up for success as the new year comes to us.
Oh, I'd love to. This is one of my favorite topics as well. Okay, short and sweet, but in a way that your audience will understand it deeply. Everything is energy. Numbers, again, also carry a frequency and a vibration. We live in natural rhythms and cycles. And when you better understand those patterns, again, you can learn how to navigate, get in the right boat, let the paddles go. Because you can be intentional and you can be focused with your intentions, and therefore the results get amplified. It gets a lot easier and creates a lot of momentum. A basic place to start when we look at things like the universal year, we are working with cycles of 9. 2025 is a universal 9 energy year. So this is a year of closing out cycles, of allowing things to come to completion, letting things go, clearing, cleansing, detoxing, decluttering, putting our foot down, saying, I'm done with this, no more. And then casting a vision for the future. That 9 energy is big picture thinking, forest amongst the trees, visionary. It has walked the path of all the other numbers. So there's wisdom encoded in that 9 energy. So this year, that letting go, that releasing, that shedding is opening up the doors for 2026 to move into a brand new manifestation cycle, a 1 energy year. 2026 will be an opportunity for so many people to start something new, to experiment, to try something they've never done before, to get inspired, to allow ideas to flow through, to do things from a place of innovation, to do things that have never been done before. It's an opportunity for us to forge a new path. And
That's pretty exciting.
yeah, I like you can feel it, right? Where I'm like, I was talking about the nine. I'm like, is this? I was a little heavy. There's so many people in my community. They're like, is it done yet? Like, can we please be done with 2025 and not to rush the process or not, be grateful for what it is that we're going through. But it for a lot of people, it's been heavy. And if their own personal cycle, I have a couple clients, they're in a personal nine energy year with that universal nine energy year. So they're just getting slammed with many things put in front of them. The universe is reminding them, like, hey, this doesn't work for you anymore. So don't do it. Like, why are you still doing this? One thing that I ask everybody to do in my community every single month when we gather, inner reflection before outer action, before we talk about the current energetics that we're in, we reflect on where we've been and what worked, what didn't work, what we're going to let go of, what we're going to release, what went really well, what we're going to carry forward. Because no matter the experience, there was always nuggets of gold. It's like breaking up with somebody, and then the next person you go out and date is the exact opposite. Well, I actually loved that my previous partner cleaned the house all the time. He loved organizing and making things beautiful and decluttering and cleaning. Bring that into your new relationship. Call that in if that's something that you love, right? But then add on what you felt was missing. And that's the time that we're in right now. That's the space that we're in right now, is to just not only look at 2025, but actually look at the past 9 years. Like, who were you in 2016? And let that land, let that drop in, that realization of how far you've come. Respect the work that you've done. Celebrate all of the wins, all of the changes, every little opportunity for growth that you said yes to, and give yourself some space and grace and forgiveness for maybe the lessons that you're still, choosing, that are still repeating because you're choosing it again because you didn't close out that cycle. And then commit to yourself that you are going to in 2026. And even see farther beyond that. Consider the next upcoming 9 years. How do you want to feel in 9 years? And what are some possibilities of what your life will look like in order to feel that way? At least the energetics around it, that I'm filled with more love, that I've
Yeah.
experienced more joy, that I have so much abundance in my life that I can give generously, things like that.
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, I have a book that I've written called Happy is Not an Accident, and it's a guided journal, and it has a lot of those very same questions. And I always say to people, it's very difficult to go where you want to go if you don't know where you've already been, to make sure you don't go back to the same place again. You want to have a different lens. And I do this great exercise, which I love, which is kind of what you were just talking about. And it's called the reverse bucket list. And it's about looking back instead of making a future bucket list, looking back and going, oh my goodness, I've done so many things right, and that's what brought me to this moment, right? And I love that.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to the analytics of this. And at the beginning of my journey, you're reminding me of this and how fun I had with it. I had my heart compass labeled up top, and then I journaled about my, what do you call it, the reverse bucket list. So I looked back and I was like, what were all the things that I did this year? So I was like, went on a trip to Mexico, walked my dog in the local forest on a regular basis, had dinner with friends, all of the things. And then after doing what you call the reverse bucket list, which I love, I might have to borrow that. Then I used, I got all my markers out, color coded, and then I colored in the dot of that feeling if that activity and that experience actually supported my heart compass. So then I had the data, and I could look and realize, oh, I spent a lot of time having dinner with these friends, for example, but it actually didn't make me feel how does it I wanted to feel. And I wasn't able to show up in a way that was in alignment with my values. And so therefore, it supported me in letting go of some people in my life, which is very difficult. But I made it fun. And so thank you for reminding me of that. I really appreciate it.
No, I think that's super important. And I think quite often there's a lot of guilt and shame around letting go of people or letting go of even experiences and maybe work that we've done. And I think when we can actually have that, and I love that you color-coded that because it's a real true sense of how you want to feel. Like, did that support me? And quite often when you do it in that way, it's so much easier to go, oh, you know what? I keep doing this thing that doesn't make me feel good. And then I wonder why I don't feel good. And being able to say, maybe I've outgrown this particular individual or this group of friends. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you have to be rigid or horrible about it. It's just that maybe you just minimize that a little bit and add some maybe new energy into your world, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so 2026 is a 1. And what else can we expect from the numerology of 2026 that you could maybe discern just quickly for my listeners?
2026 will be an opportunity for you to step into self-leadership in ways that you've never considered before. That's the invitation within self-leadership. And I want you to think of this word self and shifting from a lowercase s to a higher capital S. Move in a direction of self-leadership where you recognize that what's best for you is what's best for the collective. In some ways, there's pushback on this because many people, myself included, were raised that selfishness was a bad thing. But if you're being selfish, as in taking better care of yourself, in order to be of service to the world, then it's actually a good thing.
Well, I think anytime when we can put ourselves at the top of the list and fill our bucket and make sure that we're taking care of our own self, well, we just have so much more to bring to the world.
Absolutely. But we've literally been coded in this energetic grid of fear to be self-sacrificing, to self-sabotage, because how dare you want something for yourself, to sometimes be self-centered or self-absorbed because there's a scarcity mindset out there. And so people are just, trying to get what they can get while they can, thinking that there's not enough when there's actually a lot. There's enough for everybody. We are enough. There is enough. And so when we're able to recognize that and move that energy towards self-leadership, then we move towards things like self-love and self-care and self-compassion and self-control and self-regulation and self-responsibility and so on and so forth, which is a really great place to be because it builds our self-esteem, it builds our self-confidence, it supports us to see our own value, to see our own self-worth. Through that lens, we start to build our intuition and it helps us navigate where it is that we want to go. And it also grants us permission to go where we want to go because we see then that what's best for ourselves is what's best for the collective. If I'm operating from a high vibrational state of joy, abundance, gratitude, freedom, well, that gets contagious, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Authenticity,
My goodness.
It's a magnet.
It is. And I'm excited for this new year. And when you kind of explain some of that, I'm like, wow, that tells me a lot about my year. But now I know that there's some openings coming for new good things, and I'm all for it for sure. So I could talk to you for hours. I think we have so much in common in terms of the way we see the world. And I just love that we have connected, and I'm so glad that you came to my space and to share your beautiful energy with my listeners.
Thank you, Marnie. Me too. I'm really glad that we had this conversation, and I'm so grateful that I had a chance to connect to your listeners too.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So just before we close out, I know you're not maybe in all of the social channels, but if somebody wanted to find you and to connect with you after the podcast, where should they look for you?
My website is AnnMarieMckenzie.com. I've purchased all the incorrect ways to spell my name, so it should still take you to my website. Which will lead you to my social channels. Right now I'm playing on Facebook and Instagram, so you're welcome to add me as a friend or follow me there. But more importantly, send me a DM, send me a message somewhere, and let's start the conversation. I'd love to hear what people thought of our conversation and how they're feeling now, and maybe I can support them to transmute that into, a more high vibrational, energetic state to move into 2026 in a way that feels really good.
And I will make sure I put all of those details in the show notes as well. So I wish you all the best for the rest of this year, and here's to a wonderful 2026. And let's maybe do this again sometime.
I would love that. Thank you. Big love.
I hope you loved today's episode. I hope it inspired you or motivated you in some way to keep going and create your very best life. If you did, would you stop and take 5 minutes to leave me a review on Apple Podcasts? It's the best way for me to know that you're enjoying the show, and it helps other listeners find us as well. And while you're at it, head over to lifeisdelicious.ca and sign up for email updates so you'll get notified every time a new episode drops. And I'll send you a free copy of my ebook, The Midlife Manifesto, inspiring strategies for mastering the 8 most important areas of your life. Sign up today at lifeisdelicious.ca. And if no one has told you today, there's not one person on this planet that is exactly like you. And the world is a better place because you're here. So thank you for being here. I'll be back next week, and I hope you'll join me right here on Life is Delicious.